All right, so I'm going to start with just a little bit of breath work this morning. To me, this is such a simple, easy, very accessible breath work when you are feeling anxious. For instance, when you're in a hurry and you're stuck in traffic and you need to do something, or whatever the circumstances may be, where you cultivate just, you have just a little bit of that feeling of anxiety arise. And for some of us, this is a feeling that arises all day long, and for others, it's transient and not so often. So blessings for those who it's not very often. What a gift to not have anxiety. But let's also remember that anxiety is a gift, that it's not just a curse, right? That it kind of lays upon us, but that it's a natural state. And it can get overboard sometimes, but it also is a very important tool of helping us to recognize when something's amiss. So, especially if you have trouble um, if you're very busy or if you just have a lot going on or you're kind of deadened to your emotional states for whatever reason, if you're kind of checked out, anxiety is a great instigator for bringing yourself back into, oh, something's happening right now that I need to be aware of. It's a very strong, like flashing light in your body that can help us return to take a moment to settle and say, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? And attend to yourself. So a quick, not a fix, but a quick tool to use to help you is simply to use your hands while we're breathing. So when you inhale, we're going to just expand our breath, our hands outward while we're breathing in. And then as you exhale, we can expand the hand or bring the hands slowly back together. So, of course, whenever you're working with anxiety, you want the exhale to be a little bit longer than the inhale if you can manage it, or equal parts, whatever works for you. But certainly, at least let the exhale be in equality to the inhale, maybe even a little bit longer. And you can visualize whatever you want to visualize with this. Sometimes I imagine like being a conductor of a symphony. Sometimes I imagine stretching taffy or like beeswax that's been really softened out and back in. Sometimes I imagine light. Sometimes I imagine nothing at all. And maybe your imaginings can take you somewhere that that's just for you. So you don't have to have a visual between your hands, but if you like to work with kind of that energy of the hands to help you, sometimes just that expanding ball of energy, like two magnets, kind of moving away from each other and back toward each other, whatever works for you. Right. So as you sit up straight and tall, first just kind of wiggle around a little bit. Make sure your body's in a happy place, that you're here. Okay. And then take a moment to just relax and close your eyes. And this is just the beginning of your practice. So settle in, let yourself kind of get the cue that here I am in my yoga practice now. I can suspend what's happening later. I can just be here for myself right now. Ground yourself as best as you can, feeling the roots of your pelvis find the ground, feeling an awareness of your spine and the shape that it's currently taking, and make any adjustments for comfort and ease that you need, for stability, freedom. And once you feel like you're physically in good alignment, let's begin with this breath. So bringing the hands together. And there's really something to the hands, the laying on of hands. So this mudra of simply bringing our hands together is such a powerful position energetically for us to be. So first, just feel this. Of course, be breathing, but we're not doing the hand movement yet. And notice if this is centering to you, if you can let, the third eye space, the heart space, the seat of the thinking and the feeling and the doing through your hands kind of come into a centered oneness. And even this alone can be very grounding when you are feeling a little scattered or a little amiss. Soften your face. And then let's begin with the hand movements. So as you inhale slowly and steadily, open up the hands with that breath in. We're moving at your own pace, not my pace, not anybody else's pace. And as you exhale, slowly bring your hands back toward center. And as you do this, just take notice. Try not to strain yourself within your breath. Let it be fluid. Let the manipulation of your hands and the feeling between your hands be a part of what's helping you come into that grounded, centered place. The hands are the gesture of the breath. So you have this physical representation of a very energetic process. Remember that you are moving prana, this life force energy. Nothing is more sacred, right? We cannot live without this. So let's imagine the true sacredness of the prana that you're receiving and that you're letting go. Whenever you do any pranayama techniques, it's just being one of very many vast number of things you could do. Remember that we're not trying to manipulate, we're not trying to hoard breath. We're creating space and letting it come. Try not to top off the tank of the inhale. We don't want to have that extra little gulp at the end. Just let whatever breath is coming come, and let the exhales slow down as best as you can. See if you can let the hands also be an expression of the body. Is there a sense of ease that comes on the in-breath? Can you relax your belly? Can you have a sense of space in the body? Now, of course, if you're in a space, maybe publicly with people where you don't feel comfortable, you know, bringing your hands into this position, but you still need this attention to the breath to help you attend to your emotional states. You can do this without the breath too. It's just one more layer of being able to access mind body into the experience of calming breath. And also, don't be afraid to do this in a public space. If you saw someone doing this sitting at a park bench while you're taking a walk, it would probably make you happy. It would probably make you feel centered too, to recognize someone else's attempt at grounding and being present. So don't shy from doing this in public, but if you're uncomfortable, you can always do it without your hands. All right, the next time you bring your palms together, keep them, seal that mudra, and keep the breath. Just because the hands are stopping doesn't mean the breath is stopping. And just pay attention to how you feel. What kind of changes happened in just a couple of minutes of doing some grounding breath work? Set an intention, whatever it might be for you. Release the hands. All right, so remember we need our ball and our rolled towel today for class. So let's start out just on our back. My kitty cat is being very vocal today. So don't mind her if she's Nina's here with us. All right, so we're gonna start out on our back as we always do, or usually do. Just stretch your arms overhead and enjoy this coming home into the body in a supine way. Here we are on the ground. Let gravity kind of stretch out upon you. Reach one side, reach the other side, and be sure to not just let your shoulders go offline from each other, but your hips too. Hike one up and then hike the other up, and just feel that little bit of loosening in your back and in your shoulders. And then while you're out there in space, wiggle your fingers and your toes. Just feel the edges of your body. And then draw your knees into your chest. And if it's too much, if you're having trouble with your back, you can always just make the transitions between extension and flexion much slower by just putting your feet on the ground and being in neutral for a moment before bringing your knees up toward your chest. Rock a little bit from side to side and just find some ease. Practice is going to be fairly gentle today. I'm going to work a little bit with the spine and the pelvis. All right, let's hang on to the knees and circle a little bit like we often do, just feeling into that little bit of, like a little bit of a massage for the sacrum and the low back on the ground. Let your hips relax as best as you can. And then change directions and let your knees roll the other way. And if this is a pattern that's less traveled in your body, see if you can just, lay down some tracks with the spinning that's not as familiar. And then draw your knees away from the middle and back in toward, and let this just be about loosening up the hip joints themselves. Imagine your femur bone heads in the sockets of your pelvis. Lots and lots of room for the rolling of that head of your femur bone. All right, and then let's stretch our limbs all the way out to a star. Reach open and maybe have a little bit more movement in your feet now. Some rolling of ankles, some rolling of wrists. And then draw your knees into your chest and pick up your head and let your back round a little bit. Twice more, opening up big and wide. And then exhale, drawing in small and snug. One more time, expanding the body. And then condensing. Put your head down onto the ground. Keep your knees into your chest for a moment. Let your head settle. Let your shoulders settle. And we're going to put our feet onto the ground. Neutral pose for a moment. Just feel into your spine. Have your feet a little bit wider than your hips or even with your hips. And let's rock left and right. Just feeling our way into that movement of the spine here. Feel free to move your head in opposition of your knees so you get that full expression of a twist in your spine. It's something so simple. Notice what it does for your low back. All right, and then draw your right knee into your chest. Stretch your left leg long on the ground and let's roll around in your ankles. Just loosening joint spaces, getting into the vertebrae, getting into the hip joints, the SI joints, the knees, the ankles, the feet. And then switch sides. Left knee in, right leg long on the ground. Move around in your ankles. Don't forget about inversion and eversion. That's kind of the pathway that we sometimes can forget about. Of course, when we roll our ankles, we get most of the range of our ankles available. All right, and then stretch your limbs out one more time, feeling that expression of space. And then exhale and draw your knees in. Okay, let's roll to the right side, knees together, palms together, feet together. Inhale, open up to a big twist, turn your head. And then exhale,
Coming back, so just getting the thoracic spine to open up a little bit more here. If you're really trying to isolate the thoracic spine, keep your knees and ankles and hips together and only let the upper spine do a lot of the movement. But if you're feeling like, no, I want my whole spine to have this, then let your knees slide and let the ease come of twisting. Try both and just see what the differences are and how your body responds to the movement. Let's roll to the other side. Again, start with the knees together, palms together, ankles together, and then open up like a book. And remember to try both, a little bit of knees apart, a little bit of knees together. Feel free to kind of hang out and stay. You don't always have to be moving. How's your breath? And then come back to center. Ground through your feet. We're going to inhale and lift up into a bridge. Maybe the arms can come up overhead. Maybe your arms can come down. One more time. Root into the feet, lifting your arms up overhead, and then melting and bringing your hands down. Let's grab onto our ball. Okay, so do not have it all the way inflated. The more inflated it is, the less stable you are. So you can inflate or deflate accordingly. If you don't have a ball, you can do this. It won't be a dynamic balancing thing, but it will be a supportive bridge. So you can put a block under there if you don't have a Pilates ball or an MR ball or Gertie ball, whatever kind you found. They're all about the same. All right, so ground through your feet. Now just stay here for a moment. We're not going to move just yet. Breathe into the low belly. See what it feels like to have something soft that you're falling into, that your pelvis can just relax into. And before we start doing some dynamic movement here, let's just find our breath traveling down our body, feeling the pelvic floor move as we breathe. And something as simple as this can be very nourishing for the back. If you're having pain in your low back, this might be something that could be helpful to you. It just kind of depends on what's happening in your spine. And you can, like I said, the more deflated, the less instability you have. So if it's very inflated, you're not going to feel as stable. All right, let's bring our knees up off, or our feet up off the ground. So our knees are over our hips or a little bit forward toward your chest. Whatever, you don't have to be smack right over your hips if it's a little bit more comfortable. To be a little closer to your torso, do that. Now start to turn on some muscles. Take your feet and knees hip width apart and notice that it got a little harder, right? Bring them back together. And bring them out a little bit wider. All right, we're gonna go a little bit wider each time. So our knees are staying bent at right angles. And we're just opening up like a V with our thighs. And then bringing our legs back toward each other. Now do this very slowly. Notice if your arms or your head are trying to grip the ground to help you. See if you can be very subtle with your upper body. Lots of core engagement, deep core. This is your transverse abdominis and your psoas and some intrinsic deep muscles of the pelvic floor that are working here. Make sure your back is feeling good. So little movements instead of big movements if you feel at all unstable. How's your breath? Have you held the breath the whole time? Let's see if you can breathe as you do this. Notice if you tend to drop toward one side versus the other. Full breaths. All right, now bring your hands, actually put your feet on the ground for a minute. Let's just rest. sense of stability, that your feet are grounded. Feel your feet. So much grounding. Look how stable you are because your feet can root and sink. All right, now we're going to come back up, bringing our knees in the same position. Start with your legs together. Our hands are going to come together. And just like we did the breath, now this isn't going to be relaxing as much as the breath in the beginning, but same idea applies. When we inhale, let's see if we can open our legs and our arms. And as we exhale, closing back. Okay, this will not be that anxiety releasing breath pattern because there's a lot more dynamic movements going on. But see if you can just get that sense that the breath and the body can work harmoniously. You might find that suddenly your legs are going wider than they were before. You might find that they're not. Try to minimize the wobble and be as symmetrical as you can be. Relax, and let's put our feet down and have a sense of grounding once more. One more thing to do on this ball before we lower down, but first just feel this nice ease. Ground your feet. That doesn't mean you have to push hard through your feet, but just feel them. They are part of your stabilization right now, is feeling the awareness of the ground beneath you. All right, this next one, arms up, knees up, and we're going to do oppositional work. So as the right leg straightens in the air, your left arm is going to straighten over your head and then come back and then switch sides. Now this is an exercise for the brain as much as it's an exercise for the body. We're doing these oppositional movements. This is really good for linking up the left and right hemispheres of the brain. You can always do this on the ground too. You don't have to have the ball underneath you to do this. I have a little bit of hindrance because of my couch. All right, and then once you're ready, release and put your feet on the ground. Lift up, take that ball out of there, and rest your pelvis down on the ground. Breathing well. Feel the difference now that our pelvis is on the ground. Have a full breath. And then we're going to put the block, either the block or the ball between your knees. Ground your feet. I usually, if I'm doing this with the ball, I like it to be a little bit more inflated so you can inflate it a little bit more. Or if you're keeping it not fully inflated, you can put it lower toward your pelvis instead of higher toward your knees. You can always switch and use a block instead. Ground the feet, especially the outer feet. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, hug the ball or the block, whatever you're using. And then inhale and slowly release. So try your best as we do these movements. And again, we're just kind of sticking with this theme of drawing in and drawing out like we started with the breath earlier. And you can do the hand movements here again if you'd like to. But see what it feels like to monitor how your body's doing with both symmetry, like equal pressure and movement left and right, and also slowness, where you have a sense of control both on the hugging of the block and also the release of the ball, whichever you're using, the block or ball. Staying grounded through the feet, so we're not letting our feet cave in and cave out. Sometimes it's helpful to keep your elbows on the ground, but move the hands in symmetry to the legs. And then on this last one that you do, when you hug the block or the ball, stay here. Stay in the hug, but stay in the breath. So we're not holding the breath, we're only holding the pose. Ground your feet. Feel your deep transverse abdominis, those low abdominal muscles, the pelvic floor. The glutes have a harder time taking over when we're in this posture, I am hoping, so that, try not to let the big, strong glutes do the work of the transverse abdominis and pelvic floor. How's your breath? And release and relax. Let that ball out of there. Stretch your limbs nice and wide. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Draw your knees in. Maybe pick up your head. Maybe you'd rather keep your head on the ground. Your choice. And we're going to roll over onto your side and come first into child's pose. So stretch your spine. Walk the hands out in front of you and just enjoy the openness in your back. The openness in your shoulders. Now, instead of the awareness being kind of in the front of the deep low belly, let your awareness enter into the back of the pelvis, the back of the low back, where you feel the breath traveling down your spine into your low back and into your sacrum. Remember that transverse abdominis muscle wraps around your torso. It's not just a front body muscle. Come up onto all fours, and then we're gonna wag your tail. Let's start, instead of cat-cows, we're starting with a tail wag. Let your spine do whatever it wants to do in relation to that wag tail wag. Okay. And then find a neutral spine. And let's start, instead of starting in an arch, start in a round. Round your spine. Draw your tail down, draw your head down, open up the thorax, and then change direction. So lift, tail up, head up, and then move. Make sure you're breathing. Sometimes having a ball under your pelvis can be trying for your low back. That's a big ask. What we did is a big ask. There's a lot of subtlety into those muscles. May not feel like a big ask while you're doing it, but it actually is. All right, so let's move your spine any way you want to move your spine. And find your way up into a dog pose. Curl your toes under and feel the deep reach in your body. Let's pedal your feet here, letting your legs open up a little bit, drawing one heel down, then the other, feeling maybe your hips come offline from each other. You can get into any kind of movement that feels really nice. You can pedal your feet, you can knead your hands on the ground, you can have all this beautiful mobility and space. And then once you're ready to kind of settle, spread your hands and feet and feel the roots of this pose. Rise up through your spine and legs and let yourself breathe well. Imagine that same action of the prana expanding outward left and right away from midline, and as you exhale back toward midline. Walk your feet forward, come to Uttanasana. Wag your tail again. Inhale for a halfway lift. You can use blocks if you want to, or hold your legs, extending, opening up the backs of the legs here, and release and melt back down. Let your head soften. One more time, straight legs, straight spine, half lift. Breathe in, and as you exhale, bend knees, long spine, drop your head. Inhale, come all the way up. Bring your arms to the sky.
take your time. We've been down on the ground for a while, so you know, if you need a little adjustment to your blood pressure, give yourself an opportunity for that. Yeah, let's open up your chest, squeeze the back body, just say hi to your upper back a little bit. Inhale, arms back up. Imagine you have a bar that you're pulling down like a lat pull down bar. So there's a little effort, a little energy into your muscles. Squeeze the back body a bit. Inhale, arms back up. Exhale, a big swan dive forward. A halfway lift, growing in length. Exhale and melt again. Step your left foot back, right foot in front, lunging. Expand through that hip flexor of the back leg. Open the heart here. Let's bend and straighten the front knee. Opening up your body, feeling your breath. So now, even though we're not going left and right, like away from midline, with our movements, we're staying in line with the midline. See if you can still feel that expansion outward on the breath in and a sense of release on the exhale. I'm so sorry about my phone. I forgot to turn my ringer off and it's not anywhere I can reach. Breathing well. All right, and then come into a lunge, ground yourself, feel your roots. Inhale, sweep up, bringing the arms up to the sky, feeling that open heart. Maybe you want to cactus your arms, maybe you want to interlace your hands behind your back. You know, find your posture. What do you want today? Breathing deeply, feel that hip flexor open up, and then exhale and release your hands back down. Back to a dog pose. Extending through the spine here, full breaths in and out. Let's take our feet nice and wide on the mat. Thigh bones moving back. See if you can feel a little inner spiral of the thighs. Ground through your feet. Let's come forward into plank. You can change where your feet are placed, find a more neutral place for them. And as you find a plank, see if you can feel those muscles of the deep low core that you had when we were doing the ball work. The pelvic floor and the deep core are here for you. Finding breath. All right, and then when you're ready, heels down, lower or knees down, lower yourself to the ground. Do a couple shoulder rolls, release some tension in those upper traps. And inhale. Cobra pose, a nice open heart opener. Exhale and come down. Choose any pathway that you want for this next back bend. Opening up. Exhale, releasing back down. Come up onto all fours. Maybe a little bit of a wag of the tail. Maybe a little bit of a roll in the shoulders. Let's find a twist here. Left arm reaching high to the sky. Exhale, slide that arm under. Gaze in toward the ground. Finding the breath. Enjoy the twisting. Full breath in. A full, complete breath out. Inhale, reach that arm back up in the air. Hand comes down onto the ground, switching sides, arm up. Exhale, slide that arm underneath. Enjoy what you're feeling. Try to bring that breath into expansion. And then letting the full exhale happen. Now bring that arm back up in the air. Bring your hands down, child's pose. Settle through your spine again. Walk those hands forward, inch them. Full breaths. Then reach up to dog pose when you feel ready. Hands down, feet down, feel the grounding. Bend your knees as much as you want to so your back is supported. And then when we're ready, let's bring our left foot in front, come to a lunge on this side. Heart is open, hip flexors open in that back leg. Let's begin to bend and straighten the front knee. Remember to keep your spine long and spacious as you do this. You can pick your toes up if you want. You can tuck your chin if you want. You can put your hands
higher on blocks, remember to move with your breath, or just feeling that the body is a mirror of the movement of the breath. Round your legs, feel your deep roots. Inhale, come on up. Try not to lose the thread of your breathing. As you reach your arms high, feel that extension, the length. See if you can still feel that sense of the inner thigh muscles and the pelvic floor muscles that we were active with when we have the block in between our thighs. Access that support now. Release your hands down. One more time, a dog pose. Long, spacious spine here. Full breaths. Come on to your knees. We're gonna find the ground, grab your ball again, and one more time, we do not want it super inflated, okay? So middle of the way, and you can change this however you want. We're gonna put this ball right here, kind of right at the front of your hip when we do this next position. This is a release for your psoas. So we're gonna come onto our belly first. Bring your left knee up high, and we're gonna stick that ball right into the front of the hip with our knee bent, okay? And then come down to rest. I've done this also with my whole body on a bolster, so that my knee could fall down a little lower, off onto the ground where my pelvis was higher and my knee was lower. So if this is uncomfortable, you can always try putting your torso on something as well. All right, so I just want you to breathe here for a moment, and you can adjust the inflation of the ball and you can adjust the placement of the ball. Remember, we're trying to access that deep psoas muscle that attaches from the front of your anterior spine from T12 to L3 or 4 and crosses over toward your hip. So it crosses the hip joint and attaches onto your femur bone, one on each side of the front of your body. So visualize your psoas. Come on up like a sphinx, and we're gonna turn this into a twist. So right arm crosses over, we're gonna lose the ball compression and open up into a twist. Now you can let the ball kind of land under your knee to have a little support. Full breaths. Feel free to move your left arm around if you want to have a little bit more of a pec stretch. And then we'll roll back to center. Come up onto all fours and move your spine around. And then find neutral all fours for a moment and just see if you can pay attention and notice the different sensation on one side versus the other. Then we're gonna find the second side. So we're lying on our belly. Bring your right knee up. We'll stick the ball into the front of your pelvis. And you know, you can adjust. Everybody's a little different where they like that ball to be. So find a pathway along the psoas where it feels good. Some people like it a little bit more in their belly. Some people like it a little bit more kind of right in the inner groin area. So kind of find a place where you feel like there's a little compression against your psoas. Make sure that you're not having the ball in the center of your pelvis or right like in the center line. You want it off to the side. So just allow yourself to breathe here. Breathe into the ball and release away from the ball as you exhale so that the ball can kind of find its way deeper into you. If you do have low back challenges going on, sometimes being up on a bolster and letting your knee drop lower than your hip can be a nice way of doing this pose. But remember, your psoas is very much a part of that low back complex. Your psoas and your quadratus lumborum, your deepest low back muscle, lay right next to each other. So see if you can breathe into these muscles. When you feel ready, we're gonna cross the left arm over to the right, twist open, move the ball so that maybe it supports underneath your knee, maybe it doesn't. If you want to use it, great, and if you don't, that's fine too. Open up your hands, back of the hand on the ground, and let that right arm move around to open up through your pec if you want, making sure you're breathing well. Remember that symphony of the breath again, where we're expanding and condensing. And then come out of there. One more time, come up onto all fours. Feel free to move the spine around. Feel free to find your way to child's pose. Okay, so we'll all meet in child's pose, but if you like some spinal movement first, by all means do some spinal movement. And then breathe into your low back. Just like we did before, let the breath kind of travel as you come into child's pose. Let your breath travel down your spine, kind of like a little loft underneath your sacrum. Come up onto all fours. Actually, before doing that, let's just get a side stretch in. Walk the hands over to one side or the other. So feel that openness through your ribs and your low back. Drop into your hips. Over to the other side. Feeling that reach and length. All right, we're gonna come on to all fours and grab a block and stick it between your shins. It can be at the middle width, wide width, whatever feels comfortable to maintain kind of hip width apart. Arch your back like a cat. No, I guess that's like a cow. That's the cow version. And then round your spine like a scared cat and hug the block. Finding breath as you move between the two. Onto all fours. Let's remove the block. We're going to take our left leg straight back behind you. Engage your core. Imagine you still have a block between your thighs, magnetizing to the midline. You can stay here and just do this with your legs so you can focus on your core. Or if you're able, you can reach your other arm, your right arm, left leg, up in the air. Find that dynamic stability along your spine. Breathing well. And then exhale and bring that elbow and knee underneath you. Bringing it slowly back out. hand and knee down onto the ground. Changing sides. Start with just your leg. Engage your glutes, press your shin into the ground, find the midline. When you're ready, your hand comes up in the air, opposite arm, so left arm, right leg, stabilize through the center. Finding your breath, press your shin, hug toward the midline, hug front and back body along your spine. Deep breath, and as you exhale, elbow and knee come underneath. Inhale, bring it slowly back out. Hand and knee come back down onto the ground. Inhale onto your shins, rising up to the sky. Exhale, and sit back onto your heels. Let's have a moment of that breath one more time. You can sit in a different position if this isn't comfortable. Take a breath in, open your hands out. And as you exhale, slowly bring them back together. Remember to breathe through your nose, at least on the inhale. On the exhale, you might find that you're able to slow your breath down a little bit more if you breathe out through pursed lips. So you can try that, or out through your nose. You are ready. Hands down onto the ground, curl your toes under dog pose. Long spine, yield and reach. Let's bring our feet, walk them forward onto Uttanasana. Inhale and rise all the way up. Bring your arms to the sky. Tracing down through the center. Let's take our legs wide apart. Now, instead of going out and in with our hands, we're going to go up and down. We do this lots. So when we do this goddess variation, let's then work with, the upward and downward energies of the body. Let's see if we can feel the rhythm of our breath and the energy that we're moving while we do this. So inhale, arms come up. Exhale, palms face down. Bend your knees, lower toward the ground. Inhale. Exhale. At the end of your exhale, stay here, lean forward, elbows inside your knees. Just open up your hips in this way. Ground through the four corners of your feet. And then we'll do a couple more rounds. Inhale. Exhale. My breath pace may be different from yours. Just know that when you're exhaling, hands go down, palms facing the ground, knees bend. And when you're inhaling, palms face up, straighten your legs. Feet at the center. Lean forward, bring your hands down onto the ground, walk your feet in, come onto your back. There's so many things you can do to calm yourself, just so many. My hope is that with your yoga practice becoming ingrained in you, that when the need is there, when you feel yourself reacting, when you feel anxiety rising, when you feel choice leaving and automatic conditioning response becoming active, and you need to step back and cultivate capacity. There's so many tools, so many tools. So my hope is that you always just have the ability to access them when you need them. All right, we're gonna do the roll towel now. So this should feel just super nice. Nice little massage. We usually do this in the beginning. So I just want you to notice when we do this now at the end instead of in the beginning. So we're gonna start the rolled towel high underneath our shoulder blades. Now we're pretty warmed up, our spine has done a lot of movement already. So it might feel very different. So remember the three, we're, rocking off our heels. So we're rocking north and south over the rolled towel. And the three positions with the arms is hands right over chest. And then arms overhead. And then arms back over chest and turn to one side with your head and bringing your arms over. And then back up and going to the other side. So remember that we're rocking the whole way, and then the next, after you do three positions with that spot, then we're gonna move the towel down your back a little bit more. And you might find that some places are just like heaven and you just wanna stay, and that's great. Feel free to, you don't have to follow the sequence that I'm offering. You can just explore. And this is to help your back feel good, to feel relaxed and at ease. It also mobilizes. There's a lot that happens with this actually. So you mobilize a lot of soft tissue, the ligaments and that go in between each vertebrae. Very much get a little bit of a bath in this movement pattern. Obviously the muscles too, so those multifidus muscles that connect one vertebrae to the next, those are also going to get a little massage, a little bit of moisturizing, that's very hydrating, to do a little friction and massage and movement for all these little nooks and crannies along your spine. Not only does it affect all the soft tissues in all the little tiny hidden crevices between vertebrae, and your discs and all that, but also your nervous system has a response when you rock. Rocking is one of the most instinctual things that we do to heighten our parasympathetic nervous system. Think of the invention of the rocking chair. What you do when you hold a baby, what you do when you hold yourself, when you're feeling not okay. Often we rock. A lot of times when we're in pain, physical pain, we can rock. Emotional pain, we rock. So it's a very instinctual thing to be soothing to the body. It heightens our parasympathetic nervous system and gives us a cue that we are safe, we are okay. I read somewhere yesterday that listening to the sound of bird song, whether in reality, like going outside and listening to the birds, or on a recording, songbirds, is also a way to soothe the nervous system. That when songbirds sing, our human relationship to birds, they are a harbinger of safety or a threat. When songbirds, who kind of can have a better lay of the land than we can, being up high, sense threat, they do not sing, they're quiet. So when we instinctually, when we hear birdsong, it's a cue to us that our environment is safe. So that's another small little tool to put in your toolkit, that when you're feeling unsafe, anxious in some way, maybe have a little bit of a playlist or a song on your phone or something that you can play to be songbirds. Now, when you get down to, or even better yet, go to the park and actually listen to birds. When you get down to your low back, you might feel like nothing's going on with those arm movements, so you can grab on to your knees. I'm kind of hurrying us along just a little bit because Shavasana is coming soon. But of course, remember, you're at home. Do this for 20 more minutes. If this is like, yay, I have the time and I love this,
then by all means, do not rush through this. And when you are at the low back and you hold your knees, you can rock north-south, you can also rock east-west. So lots of potential for kind of getting into those low back muscles. How's your breath? And when you get back down to the sacrum, you can put your feet back down again and just allow that movement to happen. And you may feel that you don't need the arm position anymore. And that's okay if you just want to give up the ghost and just let your arms relax and just rock on your sacrum. But there is still something that happens when you do the arm positions, even though it's not as grand as when the rolled towel is underneath our thoracic spine. Now I'm hoping that along the way, you're finding some self-discovery of some spots that are needing tending. And maybe you're still there. Maybe you found a spot and you're just working the spot, right? So remember at the end of your sacrum, if you're there, you can straighten your legs, heels on the ground, and flex and point your feet to make the rocking happen. And whenever you're done, and there's zero rush to be there, but if you do want a few moments of stillness or shavasana, we're gonna take the rolled towel away and lie flat. You can always grab something under your knees if you need it. One of the beauties of stillness after doing that, after the rocking, is there's a heightened sense of what stillness means. Melt your body. Soften your eyes, your jaw. Feel your breath travel freely within you. Your belly can easily rise and fall. Your pelvic floor can easily expand and condense. Feel ready, and let's go ahead and have a little bit of movement, maybe wiggling your toes or moving around. When it's time to roll onto your side, stay there for a breath. Let your knees curl up just a little bit. Take a breath.
And then when you feel ready, there's no rush. Find your way to a comfortable seat. When you do, there's no rush, but as you do get up there into a comfortable seat, let's just do a couple more rounds of this initial breath with our hands together at our heart. Expanding the hands. Back to 7. Whenever you're done with this next round of breath, keep breathing. Don't stop your breath, but just bring the hands together. Let's offer our energy, our centeredness, our groundedness. What a gift we can give others when we are grounded. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.